Hi. Uh, I don't exactly know how I'm gonna start this. This one's bad, guys. This one's bad. This isn't gonna be edited. This is probably not gonna matter to a lot of you. But I feel like if I don't say anything, then I'm doing myself and you guys a bigger disservice. So, if you don't want to listen to it, I understand. You can click off and I'll upload on Saturday. Something you might enjoy. But if you want to hear what I have to say, then stick around. A massive string of events has happened recently. This entire year has been a massive string of events. Not all of them good. Basically, none of them good, actually. And it's kind of getting to me a little bit. The possibility of war wasn't enough. The Let's just get into it. Recently, a bunch of laws were passed by southern states, specifically on the topic of LGBT people. Texas has passed a law in which if a child is outed as possibly identifying as trans, DCS can be contacted. And if the parents are found to be supportive, they can be accused of child abuse and face consequences for supporting their child. Florida has taken a step into trying to erase the existence of the LGBT with the now colloquially known as the Don't Say Gay bill. And before I have a bunch of people trying to come into the comment section to tell me about what that bill says, I know what the fuck it says. It's intentionally vague language in order to, at any time, ridicule and erase us. I am bisexual. I am in the LGBT community. For those not aware, the Don't Say Gay bill is essentially about education regarding the LGBT in schools. What people will tell you is that the bill only applies to K through 3. That is false. The bill explicitly says that K through 3, it is forbidden to talk about matters of sex, gender, and orientation. And that every grade after has to be age appropriate. Now you're going to say that's vague as hell. And that's the point. They made it vague in order for the ability to be there that if they do not like something that is being taught about the LGBT, no matter what grade level, they could get the person who taught it in trouble. Why? Because they want to erase us. They want to define us out of existence. And recently, more recently, last night, I figured out that a bill was introduced in Tennessee, where I grew up, my home state, that basically is a protection for teachers to misgender students. People I know are going to be affected by those bills. People I know are currently being affected by those bills. Generations of the future are going to be affected by those bills. In Texas, families are probably going to be torn apart. Because somebody chose to support their child and their gender identity, which is not something they chose. In Florida, a child is going to grow up, guaranteed, a child is going to grow up and start questioning things about themselves that nobody is going to give them an answer for. Nobody can. They can get fired. They can get reported to the police. Reported to the government. Because you can't talk about it because it's not age appropriate. In Tennessee, somebody who suffers from gender dysphoria is going to have to live their life day in and day out being misgendered and, frankly, bullied by the people they're trusting to teach them about the world. And there's nothing they can do about it. Not under these laws. I'm gonna say it. They're going aggressive because they want us gone. They want us dead. They want to wipe us out of existence. That's why these things are happening. They don't care about children. I know they don't care about children. Why? Because in Tennessee, about last week, I believe, a bill introduced that basically made child marriage legal. Yeah. They don't care about children. They know that a cause of suicide for LGBT minors is abuse by peers and authority figures. Rampant harassment from people like them. And I think the worst part of it is they don't care who's going to die because of this. They know people are going to die. But they don't care. They don't care. And that is, frankly, it's fucking frustrating. Because they claim that these are all for protecting kids. When the kids are the very people you're going to hurt by doing this. And it's difficult. Because how are you supposed to go through life knowing that entire sections of the world are actively campaigning for you to not exist? And that your friends are going to be affected by that. Possibly your family are going to be affected by that. That so many of these people are going to die for this fake moral crusade that these people are on. And there is so little you can do about it. What the fuck are you supposed to do? Every day I see another one of these bills passed, it gets harder and harder to go on. Because my own family, to my face, said they were going to vote for a man, a president, whose goal, in part, was to take away my rights. And yeah, Trump is gone and this stuff is still happening. But I bet if Trump were still around, they wouldn't have waited a year. I bet the second the election passed, this would have happened. I fully believe that. Trump was silently trying to take away our rights while he was still in office. They're just doing it more loudly now. Knowing that I have to live in a world with people like this. People who would look at me and not know who I was and not give a fuck either. Because if they ever found out that I was gay, they would want me dead. On the fucking spot, they would want me dead. They do now. They've never seen my face. But enough to the emotionality of it. I want to talk about these bills. And I want to talk about why they're wrong. And I want to talk about why they're despicable. And I want to talk about why we need to raise hell until something changes. Because nothing is going to change if we sit silent. Nothing is going to change. So, let's talk about the bill in Texas first. It was the first one that I was aware of. The bill in Texas that makes it basically a civil duty to report somebody to the Child Protective Services in order for their child being trans or for supporting their child being trans. Let's talk about a couple of the pitfalls here. First of all, there are people in this world who would think that just because somebody wears an article of clothing that they do not associate with a certain gender means they're trans. And you're giving those people the power to launch a DCS investigation that could end in somebody getting their child taken away over something like that. You're giving those people that kind of power. Okay. But now let's get to this other thing. If a child believes that they are not the gender that they were assigned at birth, fuck does it matter to you? How does it affect you? If your child is cis, they know they're cis. If your child is trans, they know they're trans, regardless of anything that the first child could say or that you could say. Do you notice a little bit of a theme with a lot of the parents of these trans and LGBT kids? The parents of these trans and LGBT kids are exactly like the people who introduce bills like this. The parents are homophobic. The parents are transphobic. The parents are bigoted, exactly like them. But no, they cannot acknowledge the fact that this is an issue completely separated from parents. They can't acknowledge that maybe it's an actual condition that takes place in the body at birth. They can't acknowledge that. They can't acknowledge that this condition that's been known about for years, if not a decade or two, they can't acknowledge that that's an actual thing. No, must be the parents' fault. Must be the child's fault. Must be this other child's fault. Must be the cartoons. Must be the pride parades. Must be something else other than my goddamn ignorance. Right? It's got to be everybody else's fault. It can't be yours. Right? You're the cisgender, Caucasian, God-fearing parents of the South. It's never your fault. Except for literally every single time throughout history that it was. But you'll never point to that. You'll never look at that. Because that's the biggest fear of people like them. A mirror. Because whenever you hold up their actions to their face, they'll either deny it, get angrier, or finally for once see the deplorable, the degenerate, the person causing these people to be in harm's way is them. You're willing to break up families over this. Aren't you guys the party that's all about the family? Aren't you guys the one constantly going on and on about we need to protect the family, we need to get the family in order, but you're going to rip families apart over this? You understand that, don't you? And for the record, as unlikely as it is, I hope that they find parents in Texas who are supportive of their trans kids. Because perhaps it'll give them an example of people who are better parents than they could ever hope to be. Better people than they could ever hope to be. And all this time, I've not even mentioned the child. The child, the person who these laws claim to protect. How do you think it must be for the child to know they have nowhere to go, nowhere to turn to, no one? These children know that they're trans. Or they don't. But they think they might be, and they need someone to talk to. If the kid turns out to have gender dysphoria, oh well. It's a thing that happens. Gender dysphoria is a medical condition that can be easily treated. It sometimes doesn't even require much. A name change and some hormones is sometimes all it takes. And maybe it may take more down the line. But you can get there. If you'd actually love your child, wouldn't you want them to be happy? Wouldn't you want them to not feel like they're a stranger to their own body? If you wanted your child to be happy, wouldn't you try to get them the help that they need? But no. You pass a law that if they try to reach out to anybody, that if they try to get the help that they so clearly need, hell, if they try to talk to their parents and ask questions, and the parent supports them, you want to tear that family apart. You want to scar that child for life. You want to make that child feel as if there is absolutely not a goddamn person in the world that they can talk to. And you claim to want to protect that child. Take a long walk off a short pier if you actually think like this. I'm begging you. That's all I'm going to say on that. That's the Texas bill. Let's move on to the infamous, the Don't Say Gay bill. Because this is the one. This is the one. let's start with this. If you cannot see a couple, be it two men, two women, two non-binary individuals, if you cannot see a couple that is anything other than straight, anything that is other than heterosexual cisgender, if you can't see anything but that and not sexualize it, the problem lies with you. The problem is you. Frankly, the problem is you. Because if the first thought when you see a gay couple of any kind is to try to sexualize us, is to try to think, oh, the degeneracy. God forbid two people of the same gender fucking love each other. If the first thing you think of is to sexualize us, the problem is you. The problem is you, the problem always has been you, and the problem always will be you. That is you. Because I can date anybody of any gender. And I can hold their hand as I walk down the street. And yeah, humans are sexual creatures. It is very likely that for one time in our life, unless you're Ace, or Arrow, or Ace Arrow, or Demi, and you haven't gotten that far in the relationship yet, but it is very likely that a sexual thought has crossed your mind before while you're walking with your partner. But do you know what thought usually crosses my mind when I'm walking somewhere with my partner? A, what am I going to eat in about 5 minutes? Or B, I am so lucky to be standing next to this person. I am so lucky that this person loves me. And I am lucky that I am privileged enough to be able to love them. Now that's me. But I think you would be hard-pressed to find any other LGBT individual who would not agree with me. But the fact that you look at that and you inherently sexualize it doesn't make sense to me. Now, why did I go on for so long about that? Great question. Because it's literally the premise of this entire damn bill. They have inherently sexualized the existence of LGBT people. And that's why they don't want us to ever be educated on it. Literally. That's it. I have not seen another argument. Every single time I have talked about this to somebody, it's always, I don't need to know about your sex life in the class. Who the fuck is saying that? Who? In a classroom setting, if I ever walked up to a teacher and asked them, like, if they were married or something as a kid, no straight teacher has ever gone on about their sex life. And more importantly, gay people do not talk about our sex lives. Like, 90% of us have ADHD. We are more likely to talk about Star Wars or Arcane than we are to talk about our sex lives. And we don't talk about our sex lives anyway. Because it's none of your goddamn business. And the chances are, if we did talk about it, you would more than likely insult us for it because we're LGBT. I think the only time that I've brought up anything pertaining to sex was in an acting class recently. And that's because the scene was talking about kink. And I kind of know the psychological bits behind that just a little bit. A teeny bit. I don't know all of it, but I've read some. That's the only time that I have ever talked about that. And somebody will bring up pride. somebody will surely bring up Pride to talk about this. And for the record, I've never attended Pride. I want to. I really do. I want to attend a Pride parade. I want to go somewhere where I know that I can be out and proud and not be judged, and even find people who are the exact same. I want to go to Pride, but I've never been to Pride. But I've seen a lot of discourse about no kink at Pride. Whereas some people at Pride, they'll like make these elaborate costumes out of adult toys. And frankly, I don't understand it. Like, I wouldn't. But I can understand to an extent. I can understand why you would. Because Pride is about not being ashamed of who we love and who we are attracted to. Pride is about not feeling shame. And when we are not feeling shame, we would express the thing that we do not feel shame for. And people will say, well, kids attend Pride. I've never seen a kid attend Pride. Again, never been to Pride, but all the pictures of Pride parades I've seen, I've never seen a kid attend Pride. But that said, if a kid attends Pride and a guy with an outfit made out of sex toys walks past, and a kid knows what sex toys are at that age, again, the problem may be you. Because a lot of sex toys really just look like fixtures. They're objects. You super glue an object to an outfit. Unless it's in a suggestive position, you're not going to know what it is. But beside the point, for those who would use Pride as a way to justify inherently sexualizing gay people, shut up. Shut up. Go read a book. Go touch grass. Go away. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to look at you. I don't want you to breathe in my general direction ever again. If there were cosmic levels of restraining order, I would file one. Do not exist in the same galaxy as me. But beside the point, back to the actual topic, back to the bill itself. As I said before, the bill explicitly states that you are not allowed to talk about anything pertaining to gender, orientation, etc., K through 3 at all. Which people have found a very convenient loophole with this, and I quite enjoy it, because cis is gender identity, heterosexuality is a sexuality, male and female are matters of gender. So you kind of played yourself, but that said, it's a very interesting loophole. Now that said, the main argument that I've gotten in response to my blatant hatred toward this bill is all it's doing is preventing a teacher from sharing a sex life with a student. And to that I say, why are you making that assumption about a teacher in the context of gay people? And what I mean by that is, why does it specifically apply to gay people? This bill is meant to target the LGBT. We turned it on cis-hets because y'all used vague language and you thought you could get away with it. But the reason why I say, why do you assume it only in the context of gay people, is, like I said, male and female are genders. Heterosexuality, or being straight, is a sexuality. cisgender is still a gender. Why is it that anything outside of those three categories bothers you? For the record, I know the answer to this question. It's a rhetorical question. It's because you're a bigot. But to expand upon that answer, it's because of that mentality. The implicit, I sexualize you because you're gay. So a gay person existing in front of a child is wrong to you because you, for some reason, have stopped seeing gay people as people and have started seeing us as sex objects. Which, by the way, I'm going to go on a side tangent here, as if this entire video is not a side tangent, but I'm going to go on a side tangent here. Why is it that gay people are always the ones who get accused of sexualizing children when straight people are the ones who actually sexualize children? I could not tell you the amount of times that I've been on the internet and I have seen straight people on Facebook or on screenshots on r/r/the okay. There's a literal entire subreddit about this. And I have seen these people talk about their kids and like put them in a light to where they're acting as if they're grown adults making sexual decisions. And it's just I'm going to pull up an example. But let me just show you what I mean by this. This is the stuff I mean. And like I said before, there is an entire subreddit dedicated to these kinds of things. Dedicated to straight people making weird posts that, again, low-key sexualize their kids in a way. So, let me read this post. Let me make this very clear. I tell y'all to hide your daughters every time I post my son's pictures. Yes, they are handsome, and yes, they get little girls' attention everywhere they go. And guess what? I got them gold teeth made. That's why I buy them gold chains. That's why I dress them up nice. For that apparent reason. They will never go unnoticed. And I'm here to tell you they're growing boys. And guess what growing boys do? Talk to all the girls. Talk to 15 girls if they felt like it. Teach your daughters not to talk to a boy if it's a problem and you care so much. No, I'm not taking his phone, and no, he ain't in trouble. Like, a straight person would see this and think it's just a mother showing off her kids. But if you have more than 3 brain cells, this is a woman sexualizing her children. Sexualizing other people's children as well. Or let's see. Or this one. These are ring bearer signs on literal children. And this one in the back. Don't worry, ladies, I'm still single. This child is no more than 7. And do you know how I know a gay couple wouldn't do this? You know how I know a gay couple wouldn't do this? Because first of all, hi, half gay. Second of all, when have you ever seen a gay couple try to do this to a child? These kinds of things, or like little baby outfits saying things like lady killer. The fact that there is an entire tag for this on this subreddit makes me sick. This is a child in a Hooters outfit. Granted, this is in Florida. I would be willing to give this post a pass because it's from Florida. And I know how Florida is, especially recently. But this is the kind of stuff I mean. We constantly get accused of sexualizing children, but you cannot find a single example. However, I go onto one website and click one tag, and I am given multiple examples of stuff just like this. And a literal toddler in a Hooters girl outfit. For the record, I have nothing against Hooters. I've been there once. They had good chicken. The point, however, becomes that we're constantly told that we're sexualizing children. We're constantly told that the existence of gay people is inherently sexual and not bad for children. Y'all are out here doing this stuff. Y'all are out here doing that. And you act like nothing is wrong. There's a term for that, and it's called a double standard. We exist, and you claim that we're sexualizing children. Or you call us pedophiles constantly. But this kind of stuff happens, and there's nobody saying anything. Why? Because it's a straight person doing it. I guarantee you, if that post had been made by a gay person, it would have been reported 50 times to hell. There would have been comments all over the place saying, "How dare you?" And I bet it would have been shown on Fox News or Newsmax. I bet Tucker Carlson would have gotten 1 million views on YouTube in the first 5 minutes of it being uploaded for talking about it. I bet he would. By the way, if any of you like Tucker Carlson, if any of you like him, do not associate with me. If you like Tucker Carlson, do not associate with me. End of story. But moving on. Side tangent over. Let's go back to the one in Florida. Like I said before, the bill uses vague language in order to get its point across. What kind of vague language? Age-appropriate education. Because after the K through 3, the K through 3 is explicitly banned. But after K through 3, you'd assume it'd be fine. The bill says age-appropriate education. Meaning that if a concerned parent can go to court citing a lesson that is taught about anything related to LGBTQ that could be age-appropriate, and they don't like it, and they can pull some kind of dumbass argument and say that it isn't age-appropriate because XYZ, which, again, talking about LGBT shouldn't be a problem because we're not inherently sexual beings. We're just people who love people of so happen to be the same gender. But apparently that's illegal. They can get a teacher fired. It's vague language. That's what the conservatives love. They love vague language that they can find 50 loopholes in order to exploit to keep the people who these bills target nice and oppressed where they like them. The next thing you know, about half the states who have repealed the trans panic defense are going to reinstate it. Which is another thing I want to talk about. The trans panic defense. Screw anybody who's used it. Screw anybody who defends it. If the existence of a trans person sends you into homicidal rage, you do not deserve to engage in society. Please leave. Moving right along from the Florida one. Not moving right along. I'm going to say a final piece on it. Education is important. Education is so important. And the fact of the matter is, for some reason, it kind of correlates that the further downward you go in America, state geographic-wise, the worse that education seems to get. I don't understand. Education, specifically sex education, is very important. And by sex education, I mean actually talk about it, actually get the mechanics, actually teach people how to do it safely, actually educate them on sex. Don't just show a childbirthing video. Don't just assume they know. Because they don't, a lot of the time. They don't. Because they live in these sheltered little households where people who, like the people who make these freaking bills, live. People need to be educated. Because sex is a part of life. Whether you participate in it or not. And some people are attracted sexually to some people. And that also deserves to be talked about. Because I'm going to tell you the truth. My first experience ever thinking about a man in a crush level sense, I think I was about 9 or 10. Blue Samurai Power Ranger. The first man I ever saw in that kind of way. The reason why I didn't think to look into anything like that or admit to any of that until I was older was because at the time, my family was pretty freaking homophobic. And I also didn't have the vocabulary to express it. Words exist for a reason. If you have the vocabulary to express how you feel, it makes a world of a difference. It took me a while to figure out that I was bi. But when I did, and when I had the vocabulary to express it, it was a whole new world. A lot of people don't know that they're trans or non-binary at first. They just know that the way they feel up here doesn't always match here. And that's fine. But if they're educated properly on matters of sex and gender, not sex as in the act, sex as in the physical, and gender, the mental and emotional. If they're educated properly on that, and they have the vocabulary, they can get what they need sooner. They can get a label that fits them. They can go see a doctor if they're having issues with gender dysphoria. They can find a community of people who will love and support them unconditionally Except the LGBT Alliance and people like J.K. Rowling, but they're not worth 2 pennies. See, that was a joke. It means don't listen to their 2 cents. They're full of it. Anyway. This pen was in my pocket, by the way. Moving on. I want to say that education is one of the most important things we have. And the fact that you want to limit it and limit what these kids know because of your own biases against the gay people. And yes, I said biases because it is bias. Because again, if you cannot look at a gay couple without inherently sexualizing us, your problem, not ours. Yours. But we need better education. Better sex education, better LGBT education. We need it. We need it all. That's all I'll say on the Don't Say Gay bill. And now we get to the one that broke the camel's back, as it were. The Tennessee bill. The preferred pronouns bill, as I've heard it being called. It essentially states that a teacher can no longer face consequences for misgendering a student. That one's been introduced in my home state. I don't know if it's passed yet. I sincerely hope it hasn't. And I hope it never gets passed. But I'm going to say, to people who would defend this, saying, well, it's my right to call you whatever. No, it isn't. You have a right to speak. That's about all I'll give you. You have the right to speak. But that said, if I blatantly insisted that you were a gender that you are not that you identify as a gender that you're not that I just simply want to call you this. No, if I insisted that you were a gender that you do not identify as, and I repeatedly called you that, you'd get a little pissed off at me. I'm sure. If you're a cis man watching this video, if I repeatedly called you a woman to your face, you would get pissed off at me. I know you would. Frankly, I don't care. Call me a woman in my face. I can sometimes be a little bit effeminate. I have to wear tights every Friday. I really don't care. For the record, I have to wear tights every Friday because I have ballet class at 10:30 in the morning. Don't at me. Speaking of which, I gotta do laundry after this. Anyway. But the fact of the matter is that this bill, because it's conservatives, doesn't leave any room for intentional misgendering. Because I'll say, my rights end where yours begin, and vice versa. Your rights end where mine begin. Telltale Atheist Owen, he has a very good quote when regarding this kind of thing. You have the right to swing your fist. Swing your fist all you want. Swing your fist wherever you want. Whatever direction and whatever space. But the right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. Or, let's be real, the right to swing your fist ends at the front of my stomach. Because my stomach goes a little bit further out than my nose. It was a fat joke. We know. Anyway. But that is a good quote when describing things like this. The right to swing your fist ends at my nose. Your right to say whatever you want ends when other people are affected. And yes, that includes emotionally. Remember, humans have emotions. Empathy exists. I know it's a hard concept for y'all. I get it. But you gotta get there eventually. Because I really wish that society would move on without you already, but it seems very stubborn in not doing so. So if you could catch up with the rest of us, that would be great. But, that said, the reason why I say that is because people will defend this by saying, well, a teacher doesn't have to call you by that. Nobody does. And I say, fine. But like I said before, when that person dies, because they no longer see any worth in existing, because everybody wants to invalidate their entire existence, when that person thinks the only option left is to take their own life, you're going to think you should have stopped swinging your fist at the bridge of their nose. The tip of their nose. Your right to do anything ends when other people are affected. And all that means is think about your actions. Your right to bear arms ends when you're pulling the trigger on somebody. Your right to free speech ends when that speech is being used to demean somebody that could potentially cause harm to that person. And your right to religion ends at another's. Your right to your religion ends at you. Because I do not have to believe the way you do. You don't have to believe the way I do. You can have your religion, and I can have my lack of religion. But one thing for certain is that your right to your religion ends at my ears. Because if I do not want to hear you, I don't have to. Your right to misgender somebody, though, that doesn't exist. That's part of basic human decency. And if you want to purposefully misgender somebody over and over again, that just shows you never cared about that person in the first place. Which, granted, you don't. I know you don't, because you're making this argument. But wait till it's somebody you know. Because that's how it was for me. I used to be you. At one point, I did not care about misgendering. I used to say the same stuff that you do. I did. And then it was somebody I knew. Somebody I knew who considered self-harm because their mental health had plummeted due to, on a day-to-day basis, multiple times, hundreds of times a day, their existence being invalidated by people like you, by people like the person I used to be. Because of me specifically once. And I regret that. And I'm sorry to that person. I am. But the reason why there needs to be consequences for the people who do this, misgendering, is because if there aren't consequences for the person doing it, there's going to be consequences for the person getting misgendered. And that means mental health. That means self-harm. That could potentially mean suicide. It is not okay to invalidate somebody's existence on the basis that it is your right to do so. Because I'm sure if I walked into your church and started screaming, "God isn't real," repeatedly, you would want me thrown out. You'd probably want the cops called. You'd probably want me to shut up and listen to your point of view to where you could try to convince me. And that is exactly what they want. People who identify as a gender different than what you're comfortable referring to them as. Your comfort does not mean shit. I'm sorry, it doesn't. This is the matter of the other person. Do not make this about you. Because it wasn't, and it never was. And another thing on the whole misgendering coin. You do not get the right to misgender somebody after they have done you wrong. You don't. Ezra Miller is a prime example. For those of you who don't know, Ezra Miller is the man who played the Flash in the Justice League films and the upcoming Flash film of the DC Cinematic Universe. He is the man who played the Flash. And recently, he was caught in Hawaii assaulting several people. We don't know if it was provoked. We don't know if it was self-defense. All we know is that he was assaulting people. Multiple sources do say that it was unprovoked assault. Did that say? Ezra goes by they, them pronouns. Now, I believe I called him a man. I believe I called them a man earlier. And for that, I apologize. The person portraying the Flash in the DC Cinematic Universe. I slipped up and I used him right there. To that, I'm also sorry. Just because somebody has done something wrong does not give you the right to disrespect their gender. Their gender had nothing to do with the things that they did. Ezra going by they, them pronouns does not have anything to do with the things that they did in Hawaii. Just popped my jaw. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah. The right to misgender somebody does not exist. And by the way, all three of these bills that I've talked about are all technically unconstitutional. And I'm sure somebody's gonna figure out why. So, what is exactly Title IX? To ask what Title IX is to ask what it means to have protections. And the answer to that is the Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 is a federal law which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded education programs and activities. Title IX provides no person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The DOE is committed to complying with Title IX and ensuring that DOE schools and workplaces are free of sex discrimination. Now that said, this is an old example. The Title IX amendment also includes pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity. You want my sources? Read them right there. Now, The Texas one, it depends on the situation whether or not it violates Title IX. If it's something like a school official who's ratting you out, then it might violate Title IX. But that said, the two for Tennessee and Florida, definitely violations of Title IX. 100%. The thing is, nobody's had the balls to challenge them on that yet. But do not get me wrong, it is blatant discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexual orientation. So, 2 out of 3 of these are illegal, and one of them is just plain stupid. So, what, as a collective, can we do? People with basic human empathy and the LGBT community, what can we do? We can raise hell, is what we can do. The last time that something happened along these lines, Stonewall. People like to forget that Stonewall, the protest that sparked us getting actual rights, was a riot. It was a riot. It was people raising hell because they had had enough. And now I understand, in a society where the entirety of the LAPD was called out in riot gear to arrest 4 scientists protesting the government's inaction on the subject of climate change. I understand, in that kind of a world, raising hell can be a little bit scary. Let's be clear. I don't want riots. But I use Stonewall as an example because Stonewall is the example of the last time something like this happened. And what I'm saying is that we need to speak the hell up. We need to stop being in fear of these people. Get petitions. Call your representatives. Vote in every single election you can for somebody who has common sense. And if Bernie runs in 2024, maybe vote for him as well. What? I didn't say anything. Anyway, yes. Speak up. Protest. Make signs. Do a march or 2. Organize walkouts like that one school in Florida did. Y'all see that school in Florida that did that walkout after the Don't Say Gay bill was put in? I applaud the people who organized that. I wish I could do that. I wish I could organize that kind of a thing. But I'm out of high school now. I'm in college. And I'm in New York City, far away from Tennessee. Or Florida, for that matter. Even further from Florida, really. And I thank God for that every day. But to my LGBT friends, we can get through this. We can turn it around. Stonewall and the past couple decades are an example of just that. If we speak up, if we make ourselves heard, if we become so loud that they can no longer ignore us, then they won't. But we cannot let this go any further. We cannot let them walk all over us. We cannot let them take our rights away one bill at a time when we fought for decades to get to where we are now, and where we are is still the bare minimum. We cannot let them do this because it just shows that they'll get away with it. So we raise hell. Protest. Petitions. Call representatives. Make sure they know we are here. We know what they're doing, and we are not standing for it. People in Texas, it is even scarier. You have less support. I stand behind you in whatever you choose to do. But I understand if all you can do is petition and call representatives. If you can't actually protest, I fully respect that. I'm going to find some petitions and I'm going to put them in the link of this video. And I'm going to also put the links to the representatives of the states of Florida, Tennessee, and Texas in the links in the description. Do with those what you will. Having said that, I've said my piece. I am now going to go make tacos for dinner. And pray that the world can have some empathy again. Because it isn't looking good. But I sincerely hope that this video has given you an open mind. That you've seen the things that are happening. And you want to help. And if you don't, and you got this far, why did you get this far? I told you before. If you're going against the LGBT, if you in any way support the decisions made by these 3 legislators, if you in any way support the right's gigantic attack against the LGBT as it's going right now, I do not wish to associate with you. I do not wish to know you. I do not wish to hear you. I wish that you would get out of our way. And maybe go and better yourself. But that's all I can hope for. Is that you will get better. And you will learn empathy. But until that day comes, thank you everybody for watching this video. If you can, tell your friends today that you support them, that you love them, that you will stand by them. Your friends in these states or your friends in the LGBT community. Because it is a scary time right now. For multiple reasons. But I just hope that we can get past it. So thank you, everybody. And this is Dalton, signing off.